What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So today's video, we're back working on my most recent project that I just picked up, and that is the $100 mini bike. Objective really is to just do a couple little upgrades to this thing. If you haven't seen last video, I suggest you go back and watch it, where we actually picked this thing up pretty much as a bare frame, missing the fenders, the box, and a couple little things, and the clutch as well. Getting this thing all back together and actually getting it back to stock, getting a nice running and driving machine. So now that she's all back to stock, we can actually start doing a couple little upgrades to it. And my main objective today is to build a little snorkel kit for this thing, and hopefully have the air filter kind of up inside this box, kind of like my drag style mini bike over here, where it just comes straight out the motor, goes straight up to the air filter above the frame. Try to keep any water, kind of sand, dirt out of the air filter as much as possible. But there is a few little things I want to knock out real quick, and I'm also still waiting for the air filter to come in. So I could still start mocking up a few things for the snorkel kit today, but I still gotta wait for the air filter, and then we can finally at least finish that all up. But I do still have a few little things I want to knock out. I already started mounting up a little tachometer gauge, I think it's a tachometer and an hour meter, so it'll at least help keep track of the hours on top of this motor, because I think it only has like an hour on it right now. Especially, I haven't really driven it too much, so it should be nice to at least keep track of it, since this motor is pretty much brand new. Keep track of it, and then I can also keep an eye on all the RPMs, especially once we actually start playing with the gearing, which is another thing I might start playing with today, since this thing tops out at only 28 miles per hour, which is kind of a bummer. So the main thing is, this thing does have like a weird kind of chain style thing. It might be easier to show on these things. So luckily enough, I have two spare ones from my buddy Coleman, whenever he swapped over to the torque converter, and then I also had another one from way back. So normally it has one big gear on one side, and then a smaller gear from like right over here on one side, so it kind of just gives it like a gear reduction. Super good at pulling wheelies, but the top speed is really bad. So I was considering maybe taking one of these, kind of combining it together, and then maybe putting two small gears together, kind of gear it down a ton, so maybe get a lot more top speed and kind of lose the wheelies, but it would make it a little bit more better, at least hold up with my bike and the red bike as well. But I don't know, it's kind of something I might play with, but it's not going to really be too much. I'm going to have to look into that once I actually pull off the cover, but it should be super easy, since there's a smaller chain. I can just swap out the small chain real quick, and it shouldn't be doing this all big chain and kind of adjusting the wheel and doing all that. But for right now, I think I'm going to knock out installing this new kind of stock style muffler. So as you can tell, it's got a little 90-degree kind of exit right out the back, but the stock style one shoots straight back at the frame and fender here. So I'm really worried of it starting to burn this paint and do all that and kind of crisp it up. So I want to try to protect this frame as much as possible by installing that little muffler. So hopefully it'll kind of 90 right outside the frame, make it look a little bit better, and then swap over this heat shield as well, still make it look brand new. So I'm going to knock that out real quick, and then we can start working on a couple other little things. And just like that, got the muffler swapped over with the little 90 degrees. It can be kind of hard to see in there, but I wasn't able just to swap the factory little kind of heat shield off. I ended up having to find the heat shield that actually came with it, which is kind of nice because it actually has kind of heat shield all the way around, and it's a little bit thicker, so it'll at least keep some of the heat away from your leg. And that's solid right there. So now we can at least start working on some of the little stuff. I think I'm going to start tearing down kind of a couple things on the top here, like this box right here, because we're going to have to drill the hole in the bottom for the snorkel kit whenever we actually start working on that, and then figuring out where the air filter is going to sit inside of here. And I also ordered up a new thumb throttle, just because this one is fine and it works perfect. The only thing is the cable is just like 3 inches too short. Might be able to show you. And the gas tank right here, you can see this throttle cable. It is right laying on the gas tank, and it is super tight. So whenever you try to turn to the left all the way, it is like tugging on it and kind of limits you a little bit. So order a new one of those, so we'll have a fresh one of those coming. And then I also ordered a new set of grips. So since this one doesn't really have one, I'm gonna get a new one put on this side, and then I'm gonna start cutting this one off, get that out of the way, so then we'll be all prepped for the new ones to come in. And then once that's all finished up, we can actually start working on the snorkel kit, start figuring all that out, because that's actually going to take a little bit of time, just kind of figuring that all out. Luckily, I already 3D printed a couple of the pieces already, so once we actually start working on that, I'll show you guys those pieces, and let's get this all tore down real quick, and then we can start working on that. So now that I got everything ripped off the top of the bike, we can finally start working on the snorkel, since I'm still waiting for the new thumb throttle to come in and the handlebar grips as well. So with the snorkel kit, I'm kind of just basing off the same way I did on my other black bike over here. Kind of just a couple of 3D printed adapters going right onto the carburetor. So you got one here that goes on first, that actually holds down the choke lever and has a little nipple right here that the crankcase vent tube goes right on, and then it might be hard to see, but there's a little hole right in there, and this comes down, goes right in, and it vents right into the carburetor. Haven't had any issues with this so far on that bike, so I think this should be more than perfect. And then it has another kind of adapter, that 180s almost, right out of the carburetor, which will connect up to this tube there. So I was curious if you guys were interested in me making this little kit, since I could pretty much 3D print these little adapters and then source these little pipes, since they're just basically for like a pool. And you guys can build a little snorkel kit for your 212 mini bikes and kind of just put that air filter anywhere you want, put it up on the handlebars, put it on the top of the frame, put it on the back, kind of whatever you want to do. And it should just be a super small kit. So you can kind of just adapt any little air filter and any little style to this pipe, and I can just kind of 3D print a third adapter to whatever size air filter you have. So it might be kind of cool. So if you guys are interested in that, I'd love to know in the comments below. But other than that, let's get to work on starting to mount up a couple of these adapters, and then we can see how long a pipe we're going to need to actually route up into the box there. And we might actually have to start drilling the hole in the bottom here. Luckily, I got like this big open section right here that should be nicely to shoot that pipe right on through. And then I was looking on the bottom of the box here. Still got the bolts inside of here, but I have a nice flat spot right here that I should be able to shoot the pipe in. Then I'm thinking about shooting the pipe up to one side and kind of having the filter kind of up in the top section, just kind of keep it up as high as possible, and it should work out pretty smoothly. So let's get to work on that, and let's get the snorkel all kind of mocked up. So now that I got the two 3D printed adapters bolted up on the motor, I can show you guys them a little bit better. So I got that first little plate on there that has the nipple, and then you just take the factory hose that goes to the factory air box right to the valve cover, and it slides on there perfectly. And then you also have that little plate on the top there that actually holds the choke from popping right off the motor there, so you ain't gotta worry about that going anywhere or messing with that little bracket that the stage 1 kits come with. And then you get the 180 degree kind of coming straight up, and it kind of shoots it up towards the gas tank area there. So now that I got this all bolted up, I even bolted up the little kind of storage box up here as well, just so I can get an idea of where these bars kind of lay in there, and I marked that so I can get an idea of where I can actually drill my hole. So I'm gonna knock the hole into that real quick, so then we can actually route the pipe in through the box and mount it onto the adapter here, and figure out how much length we're gonna actually need inside the box there. As you can tell, I got the tube connected up to a little 3D printed adapter and going right up into the box there. So I ended up drilling an 1.5-inch hole right into the bottom of the box and routing the tube through. So once I pop this lid off, you can see the tube's in there, and I left it nice and long. Let me see if I can kind of pull it out a little bit. So I left it pretty long just because I'm not really sure how big my air filter is going to be yet. So I'm going to wait till I get that and actually set that all up nicely. But now pretty much to the point where I need the air filter to actually finish up this kit. And then once we actually get the air filter, we can shorten up the pipe a little bit better, get it all fitted up inside the box, and then we can actually tape up this tube and not be blue, because that thing is an eyesore like crazy. So I'll probably do the same way I did on that bike, with just some Testa tape, wrap it all the way up, and it actually is like a fire resistant cloth tape, so it should look pretty good and actually save it from the heat from the muffler. It's not touching, but it's got like a finger's gap in there, so it should be all right, I think. But the tape should at least help it from melting completely. So we'll see how that goes. But once that's all finished up, throw some clamps on it, and then should be solid. I already know that this box is pretty much sealed up other than the lid, so I might add a couple little holes in the front here, or I was even thinking like a little scoop on the lid itself, so then it kind of like forces air inside the box and actually keeps some cool air inside of there, instead of it just kind of like suffocating itself inside of the box itself. So we'll see about that in the future, but I want to get that air filter kind of set up all in there first, and then we can start figuring out where the holes would actually be to actually let some air inside the box. What's up, guys? So it's the next day. all the parts finally came in the mail, so we can finish up working on the $100 mini bike project. So I ordered up a new thumb throttle with the cable, so that'll be nice, and then also some new grips. Pretty much the same setup as my black bike over there, just because they're cheap and they get the job done and get them super quick on Amazon. And then I ordered up some filters as well, just something simple. They came as a 2-pack, so I was like, why not? And then if anything, if I like it, I can put it on that bike as well. So just something that's small, super simple, that'll fit in that box perfectly. And I got this little 3D printed adapter. This is something I would add into the kit as well, with these other 2 3D printed adapters to whatever your filter is. So you can cut this pipe to whatever length you need. You can slide this piece right in there, have a nice spot to hose clamp it, and then have a nice spot for your air filter to clamp. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna attach this on, cut this pipe up to wherever I need, get that filter all mounted up in the box there, and then we can finish up the Snorkel Kit completely, and then we can actually finish up mounting up the thumb throttle and the grips. So I'm gonna get to work on that, and I'll catch up with you guys once I get this all wrapped up. So I just finished up installing everything up on the mini bike, and this thing is looking sweet. And I just ended up tightening up everything as well, just making sure everything's in its final spot, zip tying a few things, just making sure it's solid. So if we take this thing anywhere, we don't have any issues with it at all. And this thing just came out amazing. I'm super stoked about the snorkel came out. So this is how she's looking right now. So you can tell this pipe is nice and black now. So I wrapped in that Tesla tape like I said before, got it clamped up onto the little 3D printed adapter, then going up into the box. The lid still closes perfectly. Pop that right up, the pipe going right in. You can kind of see the air filter right down in there. So I ended up just zip tying that down with a little hole right in the bottom there, so everything's looking good. And then the lid closes nice. So I'm still thinking maybe about adding some sort of like hole into this box here, since it's not much really airflow into this thing. So I'm thinking about maybe chopping like a little section out of this and kind of building a scoop into the lid, just because it's going to be like the highest point, keep a lot of the dirt and water out of it as much as possible, because that's kind of the whole goal with the snorkel. But then I also ended up mounting up the new thumb throttle with its cable and everything, got that all hooked up, wired up the new tachometer as well, so everything's all hooked up there on the motor. I even wired up a new on-off switch, just because I never had one except for that one on the motor. It's kind of a pain to reach down and get it, so you just hit this little button here, same setup as that one, so you can just hit the button whenever you let off and have some cool backfires. And then I slapped on the new grips, so everything's looking nice up here. And then we just got to finish up putting a little kind of hole into this box here, get some more airflow in there, and then we can finally take it around. I did start it up off camera to see how the motor likes this new intake setup, and it doesn't really like it too much. It's kind of seems like it's just bogging down at low throttle, but when you give it full throttle, it'll get up and go. So I think I might need to slap some bigger jets into the carburetor, or get a carb that has a little bit more fine tuning to it. So we'll look into that in a little bit, but I want to at least get the scoop on the airbox all finished up, so then I can cross that off and then get some jets in this thing, and we can finally rip it around and have some fun with it. So you might be able to tell the garage is a mess, and it is the next day. I finally got some holes into the airbox here. So last night I ended up just cracking down, figuring out a good idea on how to add some sort of scoop into this that actually looks pretty good. I was talking about adding some sort of little rectangle, pretty much cut 3 sides of a rectangle and then bend it up and down whatever way I needed to. And I thought that would look good, but it would kill a lot of the structural integrity of the lid itself, and then it also would kind of square off the top. So I didn't really like that, so I kind of was just toying around. I drew a couple lines and I kind of just went for it and kind of freeballed it with the saw, and this is kind of what I came up with. So I ended up just drawing 2 little lines going kind of diagonal, and then if you remember, I had 2 little screw holes on the top in each corner, so I was able to kind of integrate those in, trim those out, so it kind of made it all work together. And I kind of like how this came out. It got a ton of structural integrity still in the lid, and then once I cut this, I just literally heated this up with the heat gun and kept bending it up and then holding it, letting it cool down, kept bending it up till it pretty much matched with both sides. So if both sides has a little scoop, the lid still works perfectly, so that's all good there. And this thing's nice and solid now. And then I ended up throwing in a 93 jet inside the carburetor, and this thing runs a hell of a ton better. So now we can finally take this thing for a rip, hear how that snorkel sounds in the higher RPMs, especially since this thing doesn't really go too fast. I did take a look at the gearing as well, trying to play around with maybe putting 2 small sprockets on it instead of like 1 big one and 1 small one. I was thinking about doing 2 small ones, kind of like a setup like this, but I would need to do a couple little special spacers and kind of play with that a little bit. So I think I'm gonna look into getting just a new different rear sprocket, since this thing is a 45, and I think the Coleman's come with like a 55 stock, so I might slap one of those on there just to get that little bit higher top speed that I'm looking for, more like 35, 40, and everything should be good to go. So let's finally take this thing over for a rip and hear that snorkel sound and have some fun with this thing. All right, so I got the MiniBike outside. She's all warmed up. I took her for a couple little hits up and down the street. She feels pretty good. She rips, still pulling wheelies like crazy, and definitely has some good snorkel noise. I'm not sure how good you guys are able to hear it on video, but it does sound pretty good. If anything, I think I might pull off the lid so then you guys can actually hear all the noise inside of there. Because with the lid on, it definitely kills it, but most likely the lid's gonna end up flying off. I have it zip tied, so it'll just stay there, but we'll see what happens. Let's take it for a rip. I'm gonna probably just rip it around the block real quick and see how it goes. I'm gonna pop the air box down a little bit so it'll just hang like this. Oh yeah, you can hear it a lot better. That governor sucks, that's for sure. Ride that governor! Jesus Christ. God. I'm not gonna lie, this thing is a very fast 0 to 30 bike, but other than that, she sucks. Sounds cool though. Let me see, maybe I can load it up. Maybe I'm gonna put you guys down in the bottom. Give her a little, close that baby up. But like from looking at first person, can't really see the holes too much. You can kind of see like a little bend until you actually get from the side. So that's what kind of my idea behind this was. So it doesn't really look too crazy in your face when you're riding, but when you get that little angle to it, you can nicely see it. I did sand down all these edges so they're all nice and smooth. And it looks pretty good. So I haven't got to watch that footage back of me riding this thing around and actually hear what the snorkel sounds like in the camera, but this thing sounds pretty dang sweet. Definitely smacks a little harder once you get on the governor because you can really hear it kind of bouncing off inside the intake pipe, but it sounds pretty sweet, so I'm not really complaining too bad. But pretty happy with all the upgrades we did on the $100 MiniBike today, from the grips to the new thumb throttle, the kill switch, and then especially the snorkel. The snorkel is the really big one because I really like snorkels on the MiniBikes, as you can tell. Now I got two, and I might even make this a kit if you guys are interested, because it's definitely something I could easily make a kit. I'm not sure the price on it. It might be a little pricier than you would expect, guess because 3D printing stuff takes a little bit of time, especially I think I have like 6 hours just to do these 2 pieces. That doesn't include the 3rd piece on the top, so it has a good bit of time just in 3D printing, and that doesn't include sourcing all the parts and then getting everything all together and shipped out to a single person. So I'm not really too sure on actually making a kit, but if you guys are interested, I'm more than happy to, so let me know in the comments below. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Hope you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content, and peace out. Ride that governor!